Okay, good evening, everyone. I'm going to call the Marion Township Board of Supervisors meeting for Thursday, October 29th, 2020 to order. The time is now 7:06 p.m. We are doing these meetings through telepresence in Zoom due to the ongoing COVID-19 situation and the the orders of Governor Wolf for stay-at-home, social distancing, etc. We normally do the Pledge of Allegiance as the first thing in the meeting. Because of this being telepresence, we are going to omit that. So first order of business is to approve the minutes of September 24th, 2020, the Board of Supervisors meeting. I'll make a motion to approve.
Second.
Roll call. Peter.
Aye.
Irene.
Aye.
Jim.
Aye.
Okay. And I'm actually going to put the URL for the public directory that we have out there for anybody that would be interested in seeing any of the documents, like the financial records, the meeting agenda, the meeting minutes. Since we had a situation where we had to end and come back, I'll put that in there now if anybody's interested in looking through that. Next item on the agenda is to approve the minutes of the October 24th workshop meeting. I'll make a motion to approve.
Second.
Roll call. Peter.
Aye.
Irene.
Aye.
Jim.
Aye.
Okay. Next item on the agenda is to approve the payment of the bills for October 2020. I'll motion to approve.
Second.
Roll call. Peter.
Aye.
Irene.
Aye.
Jim.
Aye.
Okay, for the items, actually, at this time, I'll open up the floor to public comments. Sue, did we receive any by email or phone this week?
No emails, no phone calls.
Okay. Anybody who is from the community who is on the line, yeah, a couple of people, if you can give me any sort of sign, say something in the chat, raise your hand on the video, let me know and I'll be happy to unmute you if you have a public comment. Okay, seeing none, we'll move into the items for discussion. First item is the emergency declaration. This was made originally back in March and it extends until such a time as the Board of Supervisors redact that. August 31st, Governor Wolf did extend the COVID-19 emergency order another 90 days. So we still, honestly, in my mind, should leave that in place as long as there is still that emergency order, bare minimum. Irene, Jim?
Oh, absolutely.
Agreed.
Okay.
We don't have the facilities to accommodate more than 5 people in the meeting room, so it just wouldn't work out well.
Yeah, it's a very small
Yep.
number. So if we had any turnout, even remotely close even to tonight, we'd be at essentially capacity, which is kind of wild when you think about it.
As well as cleaning.
Yes, and then everything else that goes along with it. So if we're all in agreement on that, we'll move on to the next item, which is the website. We have been working on getting content over to CMS. The next step is to do the training so that we're familiar with how to interact with the website and maintain, upload certain things on a day-to-day basis. We were originally intending to do that this past week, but my work schedule really did not permit me to be present, and we decided to reschedule a lot of time when we could all be on the same seminar. Any questions with the ongoing proceedings with the website? It looks like it's starting to mesh together from what they shared with us.
No, I'm good.
Okay.
Yeah.
Next up is we received 2 complaints. One of them was for the 4050 Conrad Weiser Parkway. We got a wealth of information on that, and Sue, we did get Kraft engaged shortly thereafter, correct?
Yes, Chris was in this week and I let him know to check that out.
Okay, fantastic. So we'll wait to hear back from them, but it's based on what we received. It should be pretty open and shut for Chris when he goes out and looks at it. The other item is we received a complaint for a property on Main Street, which we are actively looking into. The police are aware. Kraft has been made aware. They have gone out and looked at it. They were unable to see certain aspects of the property because of just the nature of the site. So some of the claims or allegations that were made are still unsubstantiated at this point, but we will continue to have it on our radar and keep a close eye on it. Irene or Jim, do you have any questions about either of those?
No.
Okay. Next up is the road project.
Is Chris keeping, excuse me, Peter, is Chris keeping an eye on the other property on Main Street?
Yes. Yeah, there's
Good.
a rolling list of any of the properties that were problem areas and received notices of violation. And they, in the course of everything else that they do periodically check to see. One of the other items, I don't think it's actually on the agenda, was the properties out on Forge Road. That we actually just got an email today that they were doing a flyby on that, and they said that there was a little bit of a backslide on progress, and asked how we want to proceed with that. Well, actually, we'll use the topic right now to touch on that rather than comments at the end. My personal assessment is let's try having Kraft reach out to them as a gentle reminder, and if they don't renew their progress, then the next step would be another notice.
I guess time frame wise, what would you consider a gentle reminder? 1 week, 1 month?
Yeah,
I think he did ask the question when he was in this week because they've already gotten a final notice.
Okay, well then we might have to let's give them one last gentle nudge and say we want to see progress in the next, to me, if we give them a month, that gives them time where if Kraft drives around again, there should be a marked difference. You should be able to see tangible, definite progress. If that's not the case, then you've had plenty of time, you've had plenty of warnings.
Well, and Chris did say that 2 weeks ago when he was out and took pictures, it was substantially cleaned up.
Yeah.
Still had a few more things to move, but when he went by this week, there was more stuff there.
So it's not like it was completely derelict this whole time. To Sue's point, they have been making progress. They have been putting in work, but it looks like they've had a little bit of a backslide on that. So if you guys are on board with that, I'd prefer we give them one last gentle nudge before we get into the unfortunate nature of what has to come next.
I'm okay with that.
I think maybe a gentle nudge is we need to give them more than a gentle nudge. They've been gently nudged many, many, many times.
Yeah. So when I say gentle nudge, it's the most polite way of saying, like, final warning, you gotta do stuff.
Yes. I agree.
But otherwise, the reason we have the IPMC in place is so that we can act on things that are dangerous or a nuisance or anything like that. It's just kind of my own personal operating methodology to try to give people the chance to fix it rather than coming down hard right away. And that's not the case here. They've had a lot of warnings and a lot of time, but if it's a simple matter of somebody cleaned out a garage and we're seeing the aftermath of that and they just need a polite reminder that, hey, you can't store all this out on your lawn, it might be a problem that solves itself politely rather than having to go through the enforcement process.
I think many of these people have already been told several times, and I know the one that I drive by often, I've actually seen rats flying across the street. And I'll tell you, if I lived next door to him, I'd be furious.
Yeah, and that's another one that's on our radar that the Kraft keeps very close tabs on. So.
Good.
Okay, next up is the Road Project 2020. I have some notes, and Jim McCarthy, I actually had a question for you. I was meaning to call you this week, but I couldn't get time during the day beyond like 10 o'clock at night, which I figured you didn't want to talk to me at 10 o'clock at night.
Hey, if I'm up, I'll talk to you.
Yeah. With the Road Project 2020, the only real substantial difference to the packet is I wanted to include a section or a couple of line items about the underlying repairs. Would it be acceptable for a bid packet to say we want to do the oil and chip, but we also want to address these specific roads, any areas that need to be repaired in order to properly adhere oil and chip? And I know it's a little on the broad stroke side, but my concern is between now and when they actually go to start working on this in the spring, there may be things that I don't necessarily identify that they might identify as, okay, if we go through another winter, we're going to have that area as well.
Typically, I'd put a line item in for those repairs by like square yard.
Okay.
and maybe estimate what they think they're going to be, and then before they go out and do it, we would typically say to go out and paint them up and then measure them. Is the because they're gonna be all over the place.
Okay.
And then like you said, if they bid it based on what it is now and they open up worse in the winter and they go to double the size, they're gonna end up throwing a big number in there to cover themselves.
Okay.
Versus if we did, maybe if we think we have 200 square yards now, we put it out to bid with 250 as the quantity to give a little
Cushion.
little cushion for maybe 15% more than you think you have now to allow for them to open up a little more over the winter. But I think you'd have a hard time getting comparable bids, I would think, if you just said anything that's identifiable, because they're going to say, oh, no, we don't need to fix that.
Yeah, okay, fair point. So I was curious what the etiquette and really kind of the aftermath of that would be, because I don't want to do this and, like, to that point say we need 200 only when April rolls around or whatever they go to start doing this. It's actually like 400 if we have a bad winter.
Right. But you'll have a unit price in the bid, so as long as your unit price is fairly close, you'll get a good number. If you put like 50 yards in and it was 1,000, you would be paying way too much a square yard.
Okay.
So, maybe just, maybe you want to even estimate a little higher than 15%, maybe go to 20% over what you think you have. And then that way they'll get paid on the square yards they do. And if it's a little bit less, then you just won't pay as much.
Okay. That's good suggestion. Thank you. So I'll get that buttoned up. Irene and Jim, if you'd be interested in going out and driving a couple of roads at some point over the course of the next month. My goal is to get that together for the next Board of Supervisors meeting so that we can get it out on pen bid before the end of the year.
Okay. And do we think that's going to be over 99,000 or under if we would need prevailing wage rates?
The whole thing is probably going to be way over 99,000 because we're talking about like 2 years worth of road work we're looking to do. It's the big one.
You're probably closer to 175, 200 then, right?
Yeah, potentially, if not more than that. Well, I'll go over the bid packet with you again, but what we had for the past couple of years, I want to say, without anything else, the last time we talked about it was over 200,000.
Okay. Yeah, 99,000 is the cutoff where you need prevailing wage in a road maintenance contract. So
yeah, it's going to be a big.
Okay, we'll send for the wage rates then.
Okay, yeah, because it's going to be a lot, and then what we're going to be looking at early part of the year is, okay, now that that's out, that's gotten bid, let's figure out the next thing we want to do. Are there any really problematic areas? That's one of the things we're going to have to look at in the budget, is how much to allocate to road work beyond what we get from like liquid fuels and everything else. But are there areas that we need to address so that we can do more oil and chip or surfacing? Do we want to throw money at trying to do some culverts outside of grants? What's the grant situation for like the dirt and low volume gravel roads? There's a lot of things that we have to try to figure out, but I think we definitely have money in the account from the past couple of years to be able to do this packet. No ifs, ands, or buts. So I think the important thing is good.
And it's liquid fuels, right?
Yes.
So we'll need to get a project number from Charlie if he didn't give you one already.
Yeah.
Okay.
There should be one in the packet already, because we actually got to the point of, I think we actually technically authorized you to be able to put that out, and then we were like, hold off on that because we probably want to get them to fix, or somebody to fix, the underlying element. We were going to try to have somebody do it separately, and then we had that whole discussion about get everybody to do it all at once because it's going to be a cost savings.
Right. Okay.
Okay. Jim and Irene, any questions or follow-ups on that?
No.
Okay. Moving on to the next item, it's the road crew safety gear. The road crew needs safety vests, sweatshirts, helmet, gear to indicate that they're actually from the township when they're out working. Irene had gotten some prices from Whitmer's Clothing and Rapid Response, but I will turn it over to Irene to go over in a little more depth current status and kind of a recap on that.
Yeah, I sent out email, I think on Tuesday, with some other pricing from websites, which was significantly less. So I just want to get another count from the guys as to what their wish list is. Just thinking some of the guys that are out there routinely, especially in the summertime, providing them with like 3 t-shirts each. I know we know Butch is out there. I even found a sleeveless t-shirt for Butch. So I was very excited. Sue was there with me. So I think prior meeting, I can't recall how much we had discussed as far as authorizing an amount. I want to say like $600. That seems to ring a bell.
Yeah.
But just pricing it out from the highvissafetyware.com. And again, just let me know if you did or didn't receive that email. We're coming in just under $700 depending on what they want or don't want based on the initial response from the road crew guys and providing vests for each of us as far as supervisors go. And that they were the only website that provided a free logo. So if you could get me whatever you'd want put on the clothing, I could get the ball rolling with that. I'll just get a count again from the guys as to what they want, sweatshirt. Because Sue had mentioned that Butch is particular with his baseball caps. So if not everyone wears a baseball cap, what's the point of getting, multiple baseball caps? But at the very least, sweatshirts, vests, t-shirts, things like that mark things as visible. And all the vests will be class 2, and those have good visibility during the day. Just talking about things with John, should there be an incident at night, that would be a class 3. I don't know if we have that kind of a need, because if that was the kind of incident we were at, I would assume we're involving fire, police, etc. So they would have the visibility issues addressed, I would hope.
Is there a huge price difference between the class 2 and the class 3 vests?
Yes and no. I'd have to look at that again, and I want to say a big maybe, but it might be like $4 or $5 an item. Okay. Yeah, I mean, at the very least, the vest, if you want, we could certainly upgrade the vest to class 3, and I'll just get, again, a final count and total, and I'll bring it back to everyone. This way we could order them, and everyone can be out there a bit more safer than what they are now. Also, it's nice to know who's out there. Yeah,
absolutely. So yeah, I'd be very curious to see what the price difference is, for the two specifically. The vests, I think, are the big one. Okay. I'm not so much worried about the t-shirts or anything else, simply because generally you're probably not gonna need the t-shirt to do that, because you can just throw a vest over a t-shirt.
Right.
So yeah, if you can.
Yeah, I'll get the pricing out, and I'll ask Sue to help me. Ask the guys what they want specifically: t-shirt, sweatshirt. We were going to go with the zip-up sweatshirt. Again, visibility is the key here. So, and whether or not they want a baseball cap. So.
Okay, sounds good.
Since this is a relatively, since this is a relatively inexpensive proposal, do we really need to have a motion for this, or can you just purchase them when you find the right price? So I think we need these sooner than later.
Just to be safe, we can just authorize Irene to spend the money, like up to a certain amount. That's the easiest way to do that.
Up to a certain amount's the way to do it. Yep.
Yeah. Thank you, Andy.
Okay.
So Irene, since you said it was right about $700 for everything, based on the fact that a lot of this, like, obviously we don't necessarily want the t-shirts back from people, but like the vests and other things are going to be structural. They're going to be equipment. It's going to be something that's going to be usable for many years. I'd say, unless you guys have objection to it, let's authorize Irene to purchase up to $1,000 worth of safety equipment.
Okay.
So I'll make that motion.
Agreed. Second.
Roll call: Peter,
Aye.
Irene,
Aye.
Jim.
Aye.
So Peter, if you could just get me something that I can email to the company so that we could get things customized and get the ball rolling.
Can you do me a favor? Sometimes they're particular about either the format of the file or the size of the file for putting it onto a print format. If you can let me know what they're looking for, I'll give you that specifically.
That'd be great.
Okay. Next up is the RKL contract. The one we have currently with RKL expires at the end of the year, 12/31/2020. We have received proposals from RKL and Aikens Accounting. Irene, did you get any additional
No,
proposals?
no, and that's what's so surprising. I reached out to like 6 or 7 firms and nothing. I did have an opportunity to review both RKL and Aiken's offers, and they're pretty much the same. So it's a significant difference in price.
Okay. And did you get a chance to talk to Aikens to see if they also file similar reporting?
Yes.
'Cause I know
Yes.
they do.
So yes, they offer the same exact services. So their proposals are fairly alike.
Okay. Andy, question for you, because it's not a huge sum of money, but it's enough. If we only have 2 proposals that came back after making numerous contacts, are we able to select out of those 2, or do we have to still try for essentially what would be a third written bid?
No, you don't need a third. It's fine. It's professional services, so
Okay.
you can choose who you would like.
Okay, fantastic. So I would say I've looked it over. Jim, I don't know if you've had a chance to look that over, but before the end of the year, likely at the November meeting, which will be an action-packed meeting for lots of things, budget included. I would say let's do some last-minute discussion there, and then make a decision whether we're going to go with RKL again or go with Aikens.
Sounds good.
Okay. Next up is the Western Berks Planning Commission. I was in attendance on October the 15th. Their next meeting is going to be on November 17th at 7 p.m. at the Robizonia Borough Hall. They had some questions and things that they asked us to follow up about, specifically on some of the zoning related things and the general property sizes that we had specified for like low density residential and things like that. Jim McCarthy and Craig from McCarthy Engineering are the line, and I've asked both of them to be present tonight, mostly for Irene and Jim's benefit, so that the explanation comes from the best possible source, and it's not me trying to re-articulate something that would be better suited from one of them. So the biggest thing that they had as a question was around properties that are outside, that are in kind of the ag preserve area, that are small, like half-acre lots that somebody had carved off previously. What are we doing to handle those particular items, because they would be non-conforming based on their size?
No, because you're allowed to carve off 1-acre lots in the AP based on the size of the parent tract.
So I think the specific question, and I think those who asked had specific parcels in mind when they asked it. There are a couple pre-existing ones that are like half acres that somebody had carved off. And my immediate assessment was they'd have to go through some sort of variance, because really, for one reason or another, they're probably going to be non-conforming no matter how you look at it.
Right. Well, by DEP regs, they're non-conforming if you have on-lot sewer and a well less than 1 acre. That's the bare minimum. So you wouldn't put anything. It's a non-conforming lot by state and health department regs. So you wouldn't want to make that a conforming lot.
Yeah.
And you wouldn't want to encourage those lots to be created in the future.
Okay. Makes perfect sense to me. And I remember a very similar discussion when we were first going through this, like, geez, it would have been mid last year, or earlier than that. But Irene, Jim, does that make sense to you? Why?
Yeah.
Okay.
And so it would be the variance.
Yeah.
They don't like the variance.
In the new zoning ordinance, there is a section for non-conforming lots, and there's a bunch of different subsections, but one of the subsections is how you permit construction on a non-conforming lot. So as long as you meet those requirements,
right,
you can do it, but it's going to take zoning relief to get to that point. It might be non-conforming now.
Yeah, it is. Yeah, it is non-conforming now if it's half acre out in those areas.
Yeah, it might have always been non-conforming.
And that's what I had tried to relay to them, is we're actually, I think by going to the new zoning, we have less non-conforming lots under the new rules than we do even on the present ones. One of the other questions, and I admittedly, I didn't think of it at the time when he asked it, was about the properties on Main Street and low density residential with the front footage being 150 foot. Main Street isn't zoned low density residential, it's town center. which is a
Yes.
completely different set of rules
Right.
entirely. So I think that concern really kind of evaporates, because it's what he was concerned about, or what the commission was concerned about, was not directly applicable to what they thought it was.
Yeah, I think the only LDR on Main Street would start down at Nelson's and Beamisturfer's properties and go west from there. Everything east is zoned would be proposed to be zoned TC.
Yep. That was my understanding of it as well, is that any of the smaller properties along Main Street in town there were zoned TC.
Right.
There's some LDR also on the other side, which should be on the east side of the TC zoning.
Right.
It encompasses those groups of houses too, on the other side.
Is there a grandfather clause in there, Andy?
Is there a grandfather clause? Well, yeah, there is, because these any lots that don't meet these requirements would be non-conforming lots.
But I think just to keep me honest here, Andy, the whole premise of that is you're not going to go and get like angry letters in the mail about you being a non-conforming lot. It really comes into play when you're going to be like building something or doing something with the parcel.
Right.
Right.
That's-
Right.
it's
A
not
non-
in the
A
plan.
non-conforming lot now means nothing. You're allowed to continue the lawful use you have on it. It's totally unaffected. It would just be at the time you were going to change the use or put an addition on or something like that, you would then deal with the non-conforming issue, have to deal with the non-conforming issue.
So that's basically the grandfather clause right there, is that you have a
Right.
non-conforming lot, or if you have a use that's now not permitted, it's a non-conforming use because it existed prior to the zoning amendment. If that makes sense.
Under the new zoning, there's provisions under the non-conforming lots that allow you to even expand that non-conformity to a certain degree. There's certain percentages that you can expand those non-conforming uses.
Okay. That's good. I think that's going to be the response that I give back is, one, we had sent an email out about this. I think when we send out the letter about the on-lot maintenance ordinance later, we'll also slip something in about the zoning changing, that if anybody's interested, it'll be up on the websites when it's live, or you can go into call the township, let us know. We'll give you a copy in some capacity, and really what that means for anybody who would have to potentially get a variance. While we were talking, I did pull up the map, and if need be, I can share it. Otherwise, let me actually do that. Just bear with me for just a second.
And then just so everybody remembers, one of the main reasons that the township wanted to do this was to provide for more uses. Our zoning ordinance is pretty dated, and the joint zoning ordinance provides for a lot more uses. So if you have certain uses within this overall zoning area, which includes 5 municipalities, that means you don't necessarily have to provide for it within your jurisdiction. So as long as there's, for example, an adult use in Heidelberg Township, somebody can't come in and try to put a strip club on 422 in Marion Township and say, hey, Marion Township, you don't provide for this use, therefore it can be put anywhere within your township. So now if we're a member of this joint zoning ordinance, Heidelberg Township already has that use provided for. And believe it or not, it's kind of like right across from where the high school is, in the general industrial zoning district. So that's already there. So they can't make that claim that our ordinance would be exclusionary and therefore it's permitted anywhere.
I got to say, I am completely on board with going to the joint zoning. It makes perfect sense to me. The only other questions that they raised was about, there's one section specifically in the area where we say like the front footage and everything where Marion Township kind of differs for like low density residential, medium density residential. There's a thing in there about I think it's half acre lots. Let me pull it up rather than trying to remember it off the top of my head. That's not the one I wanted. Hold on.
This is so cool.
It's nice when technology works.
Yeah.
Here we go. Forgive my highlights. This was my notes. Okay. Any lot less than 1 acre shall be served by township approved central sanitary sewer service and central water service within Marion Township. Any lot less than 1 acre shall be served by township approved central sanitary sewer, and any lot less than 20,000 square feet, which is a little less than a half acre, shall be served by township approved central sanitary sewer and central water services. If I recall correctly, when we were talking about this, this was supposed to be a limiting factor so that we didn't have people carving out a bunch of half acre lots for a couple of reasons. One of them, most notably, is that you wouldn't be able to have, by DEP regulations, any new construction that would be a well and an on-lot system on that small of a tract.
Right.
That's, I think.
Actually, when we went through this, that 20,000 square foot threshold was actually already in the joint zoning ordinance. We added about the 1 acre because the joint zoning ordinance did not have any provisions for lots that had only public sewer. So that's why we had to make special provisions for Marion Township.
Okay.
Marion Township doesn't have any central water supplies.
Yep. And that's actually one of the things that I pointed out, not specifically on this point, but they were asking why we spelled that out on each one. And I was like,
Right.
My knowledge, you guys have no infrastructure. You either are using on-lot and wells, or you have sewer and water. There's no middle ground, which is unfortunately, or unfortunately, who you talk to, the situation in Marion Township. We're potentially looking at a situation where we'd have sewer and wells, but until we get there, we're on the on-lot. So we don't want to walk ourselves into a situation where we either have to immediately update this again or have just about everybody non-conforming.
Right.
So, okay, Irene, Jim, does that make sense?
Yeah.
Good.
Yes.
Okay, phenomenal. So that was really the two things, principally the two things that had come up was what are we doing about properties that are not conforming? How are we notifying people? Are we notifying people? I said, like, generally, if we have that sort of thing, we'll send a letter or do something that notifies people. I'm not in the habit of springing things on people if I can avoid it. We'll have to make sure everybody's in the know, but any of the questions that they had were pretty detailed around that. The last thing that I want to touch on is the 150 feet. While it seems like a lot, it's not. We're not talking like town center. We're not comparing that to the people that are on Main Street along here, which are the smaller properties. The items that we have spelled out are for like low density residential, medium density residential, those areas. And while we're substantially larger than what like the rest of the municipalities involved spell out, because I think the other ones are 50 feet and 70 feet respectively, we're a bit bigger than that. We're at 150 feet, which again, I don't personally have a problem with. Irene, Jim?
Yeah, I don't either.
Okay. So basically the takeaway on this was that they're okay with whatever we're we're doing. And it's our decision. They just want to make sure that we have all of our bases covered and have fully anticipated any of the consequences or the fallout from doing this, which I appreciate. Sometimes you need a fresh set of eyes for a third party involved to say, hey, did you consider? But I think what we have here is in very good shape, and I'll make the recommendation back to them that we want to move forward with it as is. Jim, Irene, thoughts?
Yeah, makes sense.
Fine.
Thank you.
Okay. So I'll get that typed up and together and sent back to them so that we can hopefully get this in on November the 17th. I think it's either South Heidelberg or North Heidelberg. It's one of the Heidelbergs. Can't recall off the top of my head. Which one is the ski slope, Andy?
North Heidelberg.
North Heidelberg. That they're potentially looking at doing something with that at the same time, so that we only have to do the one round of advertising, the one set of meetings to approve the changes and everything like that, which makes perfect sense. And I told them we'd love to get it done by the end of the year, but if it means waiting a month or so that we can play nice with everybody else and work as a group, then we'll certainly be happy to do that. So Irene, Jim, Brooks, if you're available on the 17th, it would be phenomenal to have additional parties there, but if all else fails, I'll be there no matter what.
The 17th is a Tuesday.
That is correct.
Okay. So far, I should be able to go.
Yes,
I
17th
already
is a
have it
Tuesday.
on my schedule.
Fantastic. Thank you, Jim. Okay, so I think we've covered that one in sufficient detail. Thank you, Jim McCarthy, and thank you, Craig, for being here and lending your wisdom and expertise on that so that it made perfect sense and you were able to handle any questions that came up.
Sure. No problem.
You're very welcome.
Next up on the agenda is the old furnace. We're looking to get the old furnace completely disconnected from power, water, oil, etc., so that we can start the process of removing it. I have called a couple of places. I got calls back from two of them. One of them said, we're really sorry, but we're just not able to accommodate that request right now. We're too busy. The other one, PWSig, was supposed to come out yesterday, but I got a call early Wednesday morning that they had a number of emergency calls for no heat. And they wanted to reschedule, which I had no problem with. We do have heat in the building. I'll actually asterisk on that, and I'll come back to that in a second. But I basically said it's less important for us to get our old heater taken out than it is to make sure somebody has heat. So we can reschedule to another time. So they're potentially looking at next week at some point, and they're going to give me a call and see when would fit our schedule.
Not Tuesday.
Yeah, I was going to say, obviously not Tuesday because election day, but well, I'll be in contact with them to make sure that we have something lined up. But yeah, the gentleman that you had given me that is local, I did not get a chance to call him yet, but I will absolutely do that before we make any sort of decision at the following either workshop or board meeting about getting somebody in to do that. But it's time we do it. It's not really hurting anything, but it's just stuff that we need to do from a housekeeping standpoint.
There's a lot of housekeeping.
Yeah, there's no shortage of housekeeping. With the text message that you had sent out earlier, Sue, about the one heater not turning on, it sounds like the breaker tripped or like a switch is off.
Well, I did check the breakers and I couldn't find any that were off, but I really didn't have that much time today to explore this whole thing. So
yeah, no, it's okay. I'll pop in if it's not
so that we
tonight.
get it straightened out before Tuesday, because it's cold in that room and they'll need heat on Tuesday.
Yep. So I'll take a look at it either tomorrow night. Realistically, won't be tonight. Or sometime over the weekend. And if I can't figure it out, for example, if it's not something that's basic electrical, like there's a switch that got turned off or a breaker that just is slightly stuck or something, I'll call somewhere and I'll report it as a no heat, which usually, as we know, generally gets a higher priority on things.
I just happened to notice that on the wall in the file room where that furnace is, usually on that box on the wall, the green light is on, and there were no lights on. So
yeah,
that's why it might be something electrical.
Okay, yeah, I mean, if we have a breaker that tripped, that would make perfect sense. Or I know, like my my heating system at home, there's a safety switch that I'm in the practice of turning it off when I'm not using the heater, like in the spring and summer months. So it might be something as simple as that there's an override, or like I said, the breaker's just off for that one.
Yeah, yeah.
And if we don't have to call in a professional and pay them to come out and say your light switch was off, I want to try to avoid that. So I'll take a look at it. I'll probably pop by tomorrow right after work and see if I can't get it sorted. And if not, I'll start making phone calls.
Okay.
Okay. Next up is the 1124 Route 419 Glen Brewbreaker Creekview Dairy. At last month's meeting, we approved extending the time for completion of improvements under the developers agreement to October 1st, 2021. However, in April 2018, the property was transferred from Glenn and Janet Brewbaker to Glenn and Janet Brewbaker's Irrevocable Living Trust. The Marion Township Subdivision Land Development Improvement and Maintenance Agreement needs to be amended and assigned because of this transfer to the Living Trust. My understanding of this is we just have to make a motion to have them make that or allow that particular reassignment. Is that correct, Andy? You're on mute, Andy.
Sorry about that.
Oh, it's okay.
That's correct. Yeah, the document's already been drafted, and I think it's already gone out to them for review and signature.
Okay. So
Andy, do they have to change the bond if the bond's not in the trust name?
Yep, it should. Yep.
That's what I figured.
Okay, so for the purposes of the motion, do we need to include the transference or change of that bond as a contingent?
You don't need to make. I mean, I'll just when they contact me, I'll let them know that needs to change as well.
Okay, but we do have to make a motion around approving the reassignment, correct?
Approving the assignment, because at the last meeting we didn't know that it had been transferred. Right. So we approved the extension. So
okay.
We just need a motion to assign the agreement.
Okay, I'll make a motion to assign the agreement from Glenn and Janet Brewbaker to Glenn and Janet Brewbaker's Irrevocable Living Trust.
Second.
Roll call, Peter.
Aye.
Irene.
Aye.
Jim.
Aye.
So Andy, did they sign it first and then the supervisors sign it, or how does this work?
It doesn't matter, Sue. It could be either way.
Okay.
Whoever gets there first is fine with me.
Okay.
They don't have to sign the same one either. It could be something where we slip pages in, signature page.
Okay.
As a general announcement, Trick or Treat Night will be on Saturday, October 31st from 6 p.m. to 8 p.m. I'm not truthfully sure how many people are going to be out, but as it's the only holiday that encourages you to wear a mask, I think we'll be in good shape from a safety standpoint. So I know, Irene, you had mentioned about you'll be handing out candy for sure. That my family may be making an appearance there as we try to get a little bit of trick-or-treating in for the kids' sakes. So if nothing else, happy Halloween, everyone. Be safe. And we'll move on to the next item on the agenda, which is the Berks County Department of Emergency Services, the 2021 Statement of Costs.
There was no increase from last year.
Okay, let's say I'm flipping through my packet, and there it is. So yep, no increase over the annual cost. I'm actually going to make a quick note here while I'm thinking of it, which will come in handy when we're talking about the budget. Okay, next up is the Animal Rescue League 2021 contract. And I think we kind of touched on this a little bit in the workshop meeting. While the service that they provide and the benefits they provide to animal welfare in the community is good, I just don't think that we have it in the budget or the need within Marion Township for the items that they have on the contract. Just from a cost per capita standpoint, I don't think we'd get enough utility out of it to make it worthwhile. Irene, Jim, after reading through that, do you share a similar assessment, or do you have anything that you want to provide in edgewise?
No, I agree. Yeah,
I
cost
agree as
wise,
well.
it just doesn't,
Yeah.
there's not a need.
Yeah, and worth mentioning, at the Animal Rescue League, even if a municipality does not have a contract in place, they will still always respond to reports of animal cruelty. That's within their mission to do that. And if anyone did have a situation where they had an animal, whether it was a dog or a cat, you can still surrender animals to the Animal Rescue League. It's just you as an individual are responsible for the financial costs of doing so rather than the township. Okay. Next up is the pressure washer gas can situation. We had been talking about getting a pressure washer, a rather nice pressure washer at one point, and it was generally decided that while that would be nice, we don't necessarily need it. So I know, Irene, you had been looking at some less expensive cold water units, simply because we do need something to wash the trucks off, especially if we have a winter where we use a lot of salt. Simply so that we don't have the trucks start rusting out on us.
Yeah, and I think Sue had included the price $519.96 over at Binkley and Hurst, and that's pretty much the model that the guys want, so I don't have a problem with that. Sue added in that we need to get them a new gas can, and I guess just thinking about that really briefly, I know paying for items is a little bit of a issue. Sue, where do the guys typically go get the gas? Is it over at Turkey Hill?
Well, wherever. One thing that Butch did bring up was there's a place in Myerstown where he actually personally gets his gas. I think it's Richard Nault across from Laser's Flowers. They will provide, like they would give each road crew member a card, but then bill the township. That was something he asked you just to consider, but I could also give them petty cash just to fill a gas can, and they could bring the change back.
Could we get a prepaid gift card also? Is that something that we could do as well?
So I know there are certain financial products that you can get. One of them is like essentially a prepaid credit card, that it's a credit card, but you can't exceed the limit of the card. So, I mean, we could go that route, having the gas card at that particular place, also something to consider. The one thing, and I'm not saying we have this as a real concern for any of the road crew, they're all top-notch guys, but if we have an open-ended card like that or petty cash, you do have certain risk inherent to that, using it for, like, I'm just going to go fill up my personal vehicle, or I need to get gas for my mower, or whatever the situation is, that you have a little bit of a loss of control on it. Although,
well, not necessarily with petty cash. I mean, I control the petty cash, so I wouldn't give them more than.
Yeah, my thing is they could say, like, Sue, yeah, Sue, I need some money for to put it in the truck, and the truck's actually still full. There's always still that it's not a huge amount of risk. I feel the need to bring it up to say, like, before we enter into a decision, let's try and use whatever would be the least likely to be abused. Not saying that anybody would, but just the least likely to have any chance of impropriety on it.
Well, if Nolts is going to give us an amount for each guy, or a card for each particular person,
it's not like a credit card. It's just you can't pay cash there. There's no attendant there.
Okay.
You have to use a card. My parents had it for a while.
Okay. So then each guy.
So it's not even like a credit card per se. I don't know how to explain it, but
it's like an account, essentially. So each person would have an account, and we would know who is spending what. If something would seem out of the ordinary, then.
Well, I don't think each person has an account per se.
Just Marion Township.
Yeah.
Would we know who is making the transaction, though?
I don't know.
That might be something worth finding out. If we're interested in that, I can look and see what we'd have to do if we can get, like, a line of credit with cards on it, like a prepaid sort of thing. Because you would conceivably have a card that you could personalize to, like, this is Butch. This particular one is Butch. This particular one's Leon. This one's Peter. That you might be able to get that through that mechanism. But before we do anything else, let's look and see. Circling back a second, the big thing about the gas that we have right now is we have a tank of gas, and it's gotten too old. It's gotten stale. So going forward, we'll need to find a solution that makes the road crew's life easy, in the sense that they can just go fill up the truck. But we do have to deal with the current tank of gas that we have, that we need to have somebody potentially drain it and then see if we want to keep the tank, or if the tank's not in great shape, get rid of the tank.
Well, no, he was not talking about filling up a truck. He was talking about filling up a gas can to use just for the pressure washer.
Oh, okay. Maybe I'm getting ahead of myself. I thought that the item on there, which we do still have a problem with, that gas container full of bad gas, but
right, no, but
yeah.
his concern was about, he doesn't want to use the stale gas in the new pressure washer, so he thought maybe about just buying a little gas can to use for the pressure washer. Yeah,
we're talking. Honestly, I'm actually thinking petty cash for that sort of small amount. I thought we were talking like trucks too, because I know that they sometimes fill them.
No.
So if we're talking just a 5-gallon gas can, I think petty cash is the way to go on that. Because if they ask you for petty cash and the gas can's still sitting in the garage, that's an easy indicator that there's something wrong. Jim, Irene, what are your thoughts?
No, I don't have a problem with that, but yet just circling back to the other issue, they will have to fill the trucks at some point.
Yeah.
And so,
well, they fill the trucks with the diesel fuel in the tank at the township building.
Oh, okay. So that's
the only thing that uses gas is the lawnmower, and now the pressure washer.
Got it.
Okay. I thought we had
everything else uses diesel fuel.
Okay. For some reason, I thought the little truck was gas, but if that's diesel, then okay.
No.
Then yeah, we don't have to worry about it. We can get by with a couple of 5-gallon gas cans, honestly. I did see Dan raising his hand, so I'm actually gonna ask Dan to unmute. So if he wants to say something, he can.
Yes, Peter, you want to make sure that the gas they're using in that pressure washer is ethanol-free gas, because if anything sits in it over the winter months or for a prolonged period of time, you're going to have a different issue with your pressure washer. So 2 5-gallon cans of ethanol-free gas, fill one up. When it's empty, you fill the other one up.
Yeah, I think for small equipment like that, and if we're not talking about trucks, then yeah, that makes perfect sense to do that, because we're small batch at that point. And to that degree, we're using the pressure washer a lot during the winter and like in maybe the spring. We need to be in the exercise of changing the oil at the end of the season and draining the gas out of it, because I know I've personally had it happen to me. I've had relatives and friends. You don't drain the gas out of like a snow blower. The next time you go to use it, when it snows, it's been sitting for a while and it just doesn't start because of everything that's happened in the internals of it from the fuel sitting in it for so long.
Yes, so we'll create a maintenance sheet and periodic checklist and seasonal checkups on it, and whoever's doing it is going to sign off on it, so we know who, what, and when.
Yep, but I think we're all in agreement at this point for the purposes of a lawnmower and the pressure washer. When we get it, a couple of 5-gallon gas cans will fit the bill, and whether it's Nult's or Hassler's or wherever that we want to get the ethanol-free gas, really dealer's choice, but I would say get petty cash to sue for that sort of thing, or fill it up.
The only one using those? Is Butch the only one using those 2 items?
No, I know Don had been doing mowing pre-COVID.
Okay.
Well, he's still mowing. Donnie is still mowing.
Okay, good. Well, thank you, Don. But the pressure washer, I would imagine it would be more than just one guy using it, especially if we have our say in the matter, which we absolutely will, is when you're done with the truck, maybe not necessarily the night of, because a lot of times they come in really, really late, but shortly thereafter of doing a plow, you have to go and rinse the truck off so that the salt doesn't sit on it. So I'd imagine.
Do we have maintenance logs now in place?
No. No, that was one of the things that I want to work with you guys on getting set up is a maintenance log. I want to get spare parts, wiper blades.
Get the garage cleaned out.
Yeah, the garage cleaned out, which I'll use right now to make that plug. We're going to be trying to plan a thing on the 14th was the date that we had talked about at the workshop, for trying to get the road crew together, some of the other township officials there, and really give the garage a good going over and cleaning out, because there's a lot of stuff in there that really has no business being there, or are chemicals that need to be gotten rid of, paints, things like that. And while we have everything out, organize it, catalog it, and put it back in a safe and meaningful way.
I wonder if the Boy Scouts need a project.
Well,
It's
the issue of public gatherings.
yeah.
Also, I mean, granted, we'd be outside, but it's just keeping distances and minimizing as many people as possible.
Yeah. Yeah, and I think we can safely do that, in all honesty. If we pulled the trucks out, the garage is a pretty decently sized space that we could have a couple people coming and going at the same time safely with the doors open, people out. If we set up some tables or something to organize on. I definitely think it's doable, and it's certainly needed. And I've kind of penciled it in on my calendar for the 14th, based on what we were talking about. So let's labor under that premise that we're going to try to get together on the 14th. And, I'll be in touch with everybody on making that happen. So I don't think we really need a motion, other than if we want to make a motion to authorize Irene to get the pressure washer, which I'll make the motion about the $519.96 pressure washer that you had gotten the price for.
I'll second.
Roll call, Peter.
Aye.
Irene.
Aye.
Jim.
Aye.
I'll get a gas can with that too, and the big red bow for Butch.
Mm-hmm.
It'll be like early Christmas for Butch.
Yeah.
Do you want to tell him, or can I tell him?
You could tell him. You could tell him. He'll call me anyway.
Okay, next up on the agenda is the garage lights. They have been not put up for a while, and that's partially on me. One of the things that we could certainly do on the 14th, because it actually doesn't take too much time to do, it's just you really should have more than one person there, which is one of the reasons I haven't gone in and done it on an evening, because you're up on a pretty tall ladder by yourself, and not a terribly safe situation to do that by yourself. Possibly on the 14th, depending on how the clean out goes, we could do some wiring. Otherwise, it might be worthwhile to, at the November meeting, if we haven't done that by that point, see what it would cost to have an electrician come out and get them strung up. They don't need any permanent wiring or anything like that. All the sockets and receptacles are in place. They just have to be mounted on the ceiling and plugged in. And we had specifically selected lights that will daisy chain with each other, so we don't have to worry about not being able to reach all the way back to a receptacle, because there are a limited number in the garage. As long as we can get one onto that outlet, we can string an additional 7 to it. So, Irene, Jim, are you okay with that premise, that if we can't get it by November, we'll get somebody in to get it buttoned up?
Sure. I'll make sure I have my trauma kit with me that day.
Oh, I hope none of us fall off the ladder.
Oh, cuts, scrapes, bruises, all that stuff. So, chemical splashes, who knows what else.
I mean, out of anything you just listed, the chemical splash is probably the most concerning, because there's some cans of things that are not in great shape that I don't know if they'll survive the trip of being moved. So we'll have an adventure for ourselves on the 14th. Next up on the agenda is the letter from LTL Consultants. It's engineer and code officials. That was one of the principal things that they had advertised, was about SEO work. That's something that we as a board are going to have to discuss to see if for that sort of service we want to continue to go with Gary into next year, or if we want to get essentially rate sheets from places like LTL or other entities to see what the cost situation was. We had done this last year, and we opted to continue to go with Gary, because Gary was significantly more cost effective than a number of the other places. But I'm certainly okay with revisiting that again this year based on how Jim and Irene, how you feel about it.
I'd like to get rate quotes from other individuals, just like we do with anything else. I'd like to just reach out to the community and see what other places offer, because some things we're saving, some things are costing us more, but I'd still like to reach out and see what else is available.
Okay. Okay, let's see if we can get that in place sometime either during November or December. We obviously wouldn't change any appointment until the reorganizational meeting, although professional services, as that goes, we're allowed to change throughout the year, but we're so close to the normal cycle for that anyway. I don't think it would be really sensible to do that. Okay. Next up is the Act 537. Jim, I think we have to do, or Jim McCarthy, I should say, because we have multiple Jims on the call. You and I need to connect briefly about what we need to do to get that memo buttoned up completely so that we can kind of whet the appetite of the DEP for getting a conversation with us. They had expressed a willingness and interest in connecting with us at some point. COVID has made that very, very difficult to actually do in person, but we can always potentially do I know they use Skype, being a governmental entity. We can certainly do a Skype meeting, but I just want to make sure that what is being relayed is the best possible thing for us to say. Just like you and I had some discussion around that it's really all how you present it. It's we're not asking, in my opinion, we're not asking for anything crazy. We want to make sure that we don't come across as asking for crazy things.
Right.
So
yeah, maybe sometime, in the next few weeks we have some time, we'll sit down, just get together for a half hour, or conference for a half hour.
Yeah, I think that would be phenomenal. I know I'm probably going to try and take some time off of work at some point in November.
Okay.
If I have any sort of slowdown where there's a day during the week that I know in advance that I'm going to have available, I'll reach out to you and see if there's any mutual availability in a schedule. Otherwise, I'll try and pencil some time with you when I'm not on the clock.
Okay. Yeah, just let me know. Let me know what works for you. We'll try and make it work for that day.
Okay, sounds great. Thank you.
All right.
Jim or Irene, do you have any questions or things? I think we've probably hashed this particular point repeatedly over the past couple of months. Specifically, one of the things I want to make sure that we include there is that we're trying to adjust the plan to be a little more comprehensive about certain things and to bring in certain other things that were not originally considered, like Andy had brought up in a prior month, where Wilmersdorf doesn't have an unlimited amount of capacity, and there are other things buying things up, not necessarily steadily, but year over year that capacity changes. So the assumption that we were originally making that we'd have plenty, while probably still true right now, might not be the case when we get 2 or 3 or 5 years down the road.
Right.
Andy, do you have anything you want to add? I noticed you unmuted.
No, I don't have anything to add to that. That's 100% accurate. I haven't heard anything. I presume nobody else has from DEP. So there's been 100% silence. And I think Jim McCarthy would tell you, they're all working from home right now. So
yeah.
Right.
That's, I think, one of the reasons that things have been quiet, but
probably.
but I mean, the ball's in our court. So
yeah,
it's incumbent upon us to do something. But we don't have a time frame from DEP other than what we've already submitted to DEP as our own time frame.
Right.
Yeah, we definitely don't want to let it drag, but I don't want to rush it, but I also don't want to let it sit. So Jim, I think the best thing to do is, like I said, we'll connect at some point in the next couple of weeks, week or two, and make sure that it's all the I's are dotted and T's are crossed, and that we're making a sane sounding and rational proposal for why we want to do what we want to do.
Okay.
I think
Because
that's,
right now, according to our schedule, the only thing that we should be working on will be looking at grant options
Mhm.
and funding options. So we're in that, I think we put 2 years in to do that. So that's where we're at right now.
okay.
Which,
Yeah, we're on the clock right now for that. We should have started that, I guess, but there is time, but that's probably something that should be looked at sooner rather than later.
Yes.
yeah, it might not be a bad idea when we do present it to at least have looked at some and say, we've looked at these potential funding sources, you know, which can be as simple as seeing what's out there. Other, you know, we know Penvest is always out there. We know RUS is always out there, but just see if there's anything else coming up in 21. And probably, unfortunately, with all the COVID stuff, a lot of programs that may have been eligible are probably having their funding stolen to put elsewhere, I would think, with everything going on.
So just throwing that out there, that would we need to authorize you to start doing that, or are you already authorized to do that as part of what we had in the plan already?
You would need to have us do that, authorize us to start that, yeah.
So I'm actually thinking, Jim and Irene, go with me on this and see if you agree, that we authorized McCarthy Engineering to start researching potential grant options, because one of two things is going to happen. We're either going to be pleasantly surprised by the number of grants that are there, or in the case of COVID, we're going to be pleasantly or unpleasantly surprised, no matter how you look at it, by the lack of grants there, and that might actually lend credence to the concerns that we're going to be voicing to the DEP around financial viability.
Right.
So
Yes, but at the same time, I guess their requisites were just to have a plan in place. How concerned are they about our ability to pay for it?
that's technically one of the criteria is, and keep me honest here, Jim, the wording, there is actually wording in there about cost benefit, proper
Yes.
cost benefit analysis. So
Right.
we actually do have a leg to stand on from a financial standpoint. The sticking point really is their ruler the same as ours? So we'd have to make sure that we get something very clearly defined and well arguable for this is what we consider affordable and here's why, because I know they have a certain criteria where they say $150 a month is an affordable thing. But
Right.
one of the things that, and I think we've talked about this before, that they don't really bring in is what are the other costs that a homeowner has to absorb by doing this? What's the cost of redoing the plumbing? What's the cost of if you have to decommission the old tank and take out a loan? What are some of the other things that accompany that? They're looking at, okay, what's the cost of the lateral and like the hookup fee? So we just have to make sure that we outline that very clearly and see if we can find traction on the sense that, like, yes, you may think $150 a month is sensible, but if you're actually looking at it big picture, that $150 also has another $100 that accompanies it for the vast majority of properties. And we can't ask people to do $250 a month. $150 a month is a little high, in my opinion.
Oh my God.
$250 is just outlandish. So we have to be very clear and very precise and actually map that. Otherwise, it's just us essentially saying, no, we don't want to do it, which the general vibe of the community is that they don't, but we need to have a good defensible reason why. And if I can speak entirely bluntly here, if we need it and we can afford it, we should do it. If we don't have a documented need and or we can't afford it, we shouldn't. To me, that's just basic common sense. But we have to make sure that the common sense that we're trying to argue lines up with the law.
Yeah, it just baffles me that these questions weren't answered or addressed before.
So the only thing I would go ahead, Jim.
In the plan at that time, we did look at what was available for funding them, which was just conventional loan, Penvest grant, and Penvest low interest, and RUS low interest and grant. And that's what was used in those analysis, those three different various options of funding sources. And I mean, I don't really see, like, if you authorize this, I don't see this being more than maybe, I mean, at most 16 hours a time. It's probably going to be more like 10 for us to just contact the 7 or 8 different institutions that give grants for these kind of projects and see what they have coming out in 21 and 22. We're not applying for anything at this point. It's just, here's what's coming out, and here's, if they have a grant, what's their program? Is it all loan? At what interest rate? What year? If they do grants, what's it based on? Most of them are based on the median income of the service area. But, you just got to talk to them and say, if we have this project of X dollars and roughly median income of this, what do you think we'd be eligible for? So it's really more just getting those couple questions answered from somebody rather than just pulling up on the website and saying, well, this grant's eligible, but then find out, well, they're going to give us $1 and loan us 99%. So, that really doesn't help us. We really need something that's going to give us a large portion of grants, or like Peter said, I don't think it falls into the realm of what the township feels is affordable.
Yeah. And that's just to circle back a bit. There is a little bit in the plan, but this was one of the big things that I argued with Peter Wallace and Franklin was it's kind of there, but it's really not to the degree that would give me the comfort to sleep soundly at night. Because if we had to take that to any semblance of a court case, I think we'd get raked over the coals with that. And I don't want to see us walk into something, really any sort of lawsuit one way or the other. I want to try to avoid lawsuits whenever we possibly can for the record. But I want to have it so that the new plan or the revised plan is suitable for everybody, that we're effectively conforming to the rules and regulations, but we're also protecting the constituency from a large project that if we can't afford it, it's kind of again a no-brainer. We can't afford it, we can't do it. We have to find some other alternative, and right now the plan doesn't really have any contingencies in it. It's essentially just public sewer. But anyway, to circle back to that, Irene and Jim, what are your thoughts on getting that initial foray of what grants are available?
Tell me what I could do to help.
Okay, well, I mean, at this point, we just have to make a motion to get McCarthy Engineering to start doing the groundwork for it.
Definitely.
So moved.
Okay, well, I'll make the motion to authorize McCarthy Engineering to research the available grant options around the Act 537.
Okay, we'll hopefully have that all done for next month.
Wait, I need a second or
Oh, sorry.
something.
Second.
Roll call, Peter.
Aye.
Irene,
Aye.
Jim.
Aye.
Okay.
And now that it's official, hopefully we'll have it done for next month.
Excellent. Thank you, Jim. Okay, next item on the agenda, and it's actually the last item of the evening, is the budget. So Irene, you had run some preliminary numbers out of QuickBooks with Dan, and I'm actually, just for the purpose of this discussion, because Dan is the assistant treasurer, I'm going to unmute Dan in case he has anything he wants to add. And I've actually been taking a look at that and poking around with some numbers, and I sent you a draft sheet, and there's a draft sheet that's actually out on the Google Drive.
Nice summary. Thank you.
Yeah, I'm working on making that a little easier to read, a little more robust. And I'm making sure that it matches up with all of the categories that we had defined in the 2020 budget, even ones that didn't have a dollar amount assigned to them. So I'll hopefully have that out soon. I just haven't had a huge amount of time to do that, but I'm doing it in such a way that the millage and the streetlight footage will be defined on one area of the sheet, and you can see a direct comparison that if you wanted to see the budget at 2 mils, which is what our current rate is, here's what the income would be versus the expenses. Here's what it would look like at 1.9, 1.8, 1.7, or 2.1. From looking it over, it doesn't look like we're going to have to do any sort of increase at all. We're actually in pretty good shape overall, all things considered from a financial standpoint, especially in light of COVID. And I'll actually, just for the purposes of discussion, let me share the sheet. That way everybody can see it. Okay, so I'm gonna zoom in a little bit, that way everybody can see it a little easier. Okay, so in 2020, we had a total budgeted amount for revenue of basically $3,200, $3,197.50. We've actually taken in considerably more than that for some reason, based on the front footage that we had. So one of the things that I want to look at before we actually go through the motions of this accepting and advertising one is I want to check all the streetlight receipts for 2020. And that's something Irene, you and I and Dan can work on to make sure that there wasn't something that got misdeposited. We have noticed some deposit slips, and for the record, it's not us doing it. By bank error, they have gone into the wrong account. We've seen that once or twice throughout the year.
I think we're spot on, but I wouldn't mind a nice review, considering I wasn't doing some of the stuff early on in the year, and yeah.
Okay, and the only reason that I'm suspect of that is it's supposed to be assessed by footage, and we have a fixed number of feet, linear, like front foot, that it should be assessed on. And if we have a constant rate of the billing for that, the 0.5, it should be the same number. It should be almost exactly, unless somebody overpaid for some reason. We should always have that amount, potentially less if somebody welched out on it. So I just want to make sure that we don't have anything strange there from a bookkeeping standpoint. But we certainly didn't run short on that. Liquid fuels was the same because of the hiatus that we had on road work.
Yes, but there was a deposit. The 2019 liquid fuels deposit was actually made in 2020. So that's why we're over by that large of amount. So there was a deposit of, was it 103.85 something? So that was that big jump in liquid fuel. So that's actually 2019's funds.
Yep.
Yeah.
Yeah, and we actually, and that's for the sake of clarity, that's these two right here.
Yep.
We actually are in extremely good shape on the liquid fuels fund because of not spending basically anything in 2020 because of COVID. General funds is in a similar state. We actually, and I'll go over to the general fund specifically in a second, we took in more revenue than we were anticipating at the end of 2019 going into 2020. We actually have at this point about $100,000 beyond what was originally budgeted for that. So we're in great shape there. I added the mill rates at the top of the sheet for you and Jim, and then what that translates to. So at 2 mills, that would be what we would take in terms of real estate tax revenue. 1.9 would be this amount. 1.8 would be this amount. 1.7 would be this amount. And the long-term intent, the thing that I'm doing on the other sheet, is to be able to give you a direct comparison where you would pick the millage and it would show you, okay, at 1.9, this is how much money we would take in the general fund. Would it be equal, less, or greater than the expenses that we have planned for 2021? Hopefully we'll have that out soon that you guys can look at it. The intent being that we can talk about it at length at the November Board of Supervisors meeting, have something for the Thursday night meeting to review, and then subsequently approve and I shouldn't say approve, but advertise so that we can approve it in December.
Dan, are you still on?
I'm here.
Okay. I guess at some point, I'll take a look at my schedule. We could pull all the streetlight stuff just to make sure all of our numbers are good.
Yeah, we can go back in and take a day and actually pull the files and
pull everything.
Yep.
Make sure everything was deposited correctly.
Yeah, like I said, that's the only thing that jumped out as me as a kind of an oddity. There's not a lot of variability on the streetlight fund. Usually, there's a certain number of feet and we charge a certain amount of money per foot, and that should be that. Otherwise, if we want to get into looking at the general fund a little bit, Seeing as it's 8:30, I'm not gonna tie this up too much, but I feel it's good to set some groundwork before we go into that workshop meeting next month. Otherwise, we'll be there for like 6 hours.
Oh, that's the work we were doing, Dan.
Um,
But Peter made it look prettier.
yeah,
Come on,
I couldn't.
Peter, join the fun.
I would be delighted to. Believe me, during the day, I'd much rather be monkeying with the books than a lot of the things that I do.
No, you don't. No, you don't. It's a nightmare. God.
It's a vacation for me.
Oh, God.
So the couple of things that jumped out for me is the like earned income tax credit.
Yeah.
I don't think we should intentionally, like, even if we had a high amount this year, I think we should leave it low for the purposes of budgeting next year. And then there's certain things that might have been higher necessarily than they should have been. But I think we should honestly ramp them up a bit. Like, for example, the solicitor legal, I'll pick on Andy for a second. I'm thinking we should actually earmark. We had 50,000 in 2019. We had pushed it down to 35 in 2020. So far this year, we've had about 40,000, a little over 40,000. I'm thinking 42 or 45 is probably a more reasonable estimate for that.
Well, we have 42 there.
Yeah, well, that's the. No, I'm agreeing with you. I think 42 or 45 is a more reasonable estimate than the 35, based on what we've seen for 2020. And then we have other things, like one of the ones I wanted to touch on was the building maintenance. That we didn't do anything this year with COVID, but I think it would be good to once again earmark either 40,000. I think the fund has enough in it. Allocate more to it, and then try and chase bigger projects next year, like the windows, the drop ceiling. There was an email that was circulating around for funding for certain municipal projects, like town halls, like that, and see if we can get something big, if we can get grant money to put something in, like an elevator, so that we could actually start using the second floor in a capacity that's ADA compliant. So
Sue
Irene,
recommended that maybe we build her a bigger office.
Well, that would be nice.
if we had stuff on the second floor, we actually could potentially shift, like, for example, the meeting room. If we had the ability to use that large space that's above the garage, and we had the funding to, like, put in a heater and replace the windows and actually make it an accessible, usable space, we could talk about reallocating some of the areas on the first floor for things like a bigger office for Sue. But
it'd be nice to have the files next to me.
Yeah.
Honestly, there's a lot of really nice things that could be done with the building, but the building is not in the shape to accommodate a lot of those. So we need to do some remedial work. And I guess the takeaway point on this is, as we look at the budget, let's really try and zero in on things that we think would be the most beneficial to put it on. If there's a situation where we start to go through and balance this, and we're like, okay, we could actually go back down to 1.9 instead of the 2. Is it worthwhile to drop that, what amounts to basically like $10,000? Is it worth cutting the taxes back, or would it be better to use that $10,000 to do something like chase a bigger grant that requires a matching contribution for something like an elevator or the windows? Or we had talked very briefly at one point in one of the workshop meetings about relocating and rebuilding the salt shed so that it was also the garage for the trucks, and then getting the trucks out of the building and then using that large space for something else, meeting rooms, whatever, using the financial bandwidth.
Or relocating and building a new building.
Yeah, I mean, that's a whole other huge can of worms on a project, but yeah, there's just food for thought. As we start to go through and balance this, let's look at it and very carefully weigh the tax rate versus what we want to try to accomplish with the funds. If it's a situation where we can reduce taxes without sacrificing, let's certainly make that consideration. Let's make it a good, strong consideration. But
I've always learned, Peter, that when you give something back, it's much harder to take it away again.
yes, yeah. Once you've given it back, it's really hard to to reinstate it for sure. And we had similar conversation about some of this in the past, where the actual difference in mill rate between like 1.9 and 2 isn't a tremendous amount. It's about $10,000 for 0.1 mils. And while $10,000 is a lot of money, when you spread $10,000 over the tax base, it's really not that huge of a difference per household.
No.
Really and truly, it isn't.
But it is a huge difference for us as a township.
Yes, as I say, but for us to be able to do things like, for example, if we look at this and we go, we have X number of dollars or X number of thousands of dollars available. Let's consider buying a new backhoe or something like that, or a piece of equipment that we need that we've been putting off. Or in the case like the building is a shining example. Let's get the building fixed, or let's try and make, like I said, the second floor more accessible so that we can actually start using that like an actual space rather than just locking it off 99% of the year. Things like that. So I think you and Dan did an excellent job on getting the numbers out and making a lot of really good, solid suggestions on things. We just have to sit and analyze, okay, our bottom line for revenue that we're expecting is this. Our bottom line for what we're going to be spending is this. Of that gap, do we want to, I'm seeing like basically $13,000 now. Do we want to reduce it by 0.1 mils, or do we want to try to allocate that 13,000 into building repairs or machinery purchases or anything else? So look it over, sleep on it, give it some thought. I'm going to be doing the same. I'm going to be probably staring at it a lot as I start to transcribe things over. And I have last year's budget printed out, and I'm checking them off as I enter them to make sure we don't have anything that's snuck through or didn't sneak through.
Yeah, that's what Dan and I did. And some of the categories we might have just combined. Some of the highlighted items that you have there too. Again, Dan and I like mulled over this. What did we spend 3 or 4 hours that day? So like line 70, emergency management. There's no wage for the emergency management, and I think you included it up on top. We have to replace the pager that was assigned to Marion Township, plus getting a radio so that we're on the same frequency as the rest of the county is very important. So between that two, that is probably going to be close to $5,000. But again, other items that John has been thinking of and going over is what we would need for the township. I guess, Dan, in your free time and my free time, let's see what we could find as far as grants and all kinds of information, whether it pertains to the building or supplies, whatever it is that we could find. I mean, it'd be wonderful if we could find stuff that's going to help us fix up that building and make much better use of it for both us as well as the public. That's my goal.
So Irene, did you happen to find that email that I mentioned at the workshop about the municipal space and like town halls and things like that?
No.
Okay. I will be, as soon as we're done with this meeting, I will forward that to you again, because I think I forwarded it or re-forwarded it to the group and made a crack about, hey, maybe we should try and get an elevator. So I'll see if I can find that and re-forward it again.
I might have just overlooked it with all the 1,001 other emails I was looking through, so I apologize.
No need to apologize. I know how that goes. I really and truly do. I'm thinking as I looked through the 2020 budget that was advertised, there actually was, I'm trying to remember where it was, what category it was in. There was actually like an emergency management wages item. So I might have to move a couple of things around.
As far as I understand, that's not a paid position. On line 51 and 52, that 51 and 52, the amounts that I think the part-time clerical that we had figured out, what was that, like 9,000 something, Dan?
Yeah.
Because that would fit Dan's. I do not take any money to do the treasurer's work, so I don't take any money. Anytime I step in the office, the only time I'm getting paid is because we have to get paid for these meetings. So, and I'm donating those funds. So, yeah. So that previous number was done by the prior treasurer.
Okay. Yeah, I was curious
Yeah.
if it was, because I noticed that there wasn't anything budgeted there, and if it should be or shouldn't be.
But I thought we did do that.
You had only the part-time clerical. There wasn't actually anything for treasurer.
Part-time clerical, I think that's what we stuck it under. But
And that's fine. I
thought we stuck in like 9,500 something, Dan, didn't we? We
think
figured like
I think
10
I
hours a
adjust,
week, 18, 15 hour.
yeah, I think I cranked it up to 10,000 just to have a little bit of a buffer on it.
Yeah.
I mean, since we're there, we could look at line 50.
Mhm.
Sue hasn't received an increase in salary for last year, and I think that's a long overdue for her.
Yes. So I had a question for Andy, because I know some other places have this. Is there any sort of precedent of not necessarily like a township manager, because I think that's something else entirely, like a municipal office manager, something that's beyond a secretary, that would potentially have a different pay scale to it?
No, not that I have seen, not that I know of. It's either a township secretary or a township manager.
Okay.
The township manager is needs to be created by ordinance. It's a position that needs to be created with an ordinance that kind of outlines the job duties. But now there's no in between that I know of.
Okay. Okay, so food for thought for Jim and Irene. I'm all for giving Sue a pay raise for all the hard work that she does. She really is kind of the glue that keeps everything together behind the scenes. I would be very, very upset if Sue quit. So please don't quit, Sue.
I'm not planning on it.
Good. But I was trying to see if, because I think we're certainly within our purview to be able to raise Sue's rate for sure. But I was just curious if it would benefit us to potentially make Sue create a position or use an existing style of position to say, like, a lot of the stuff that you do exceeds the usual scope of what a secretary does. You're having this title, and there's going to be this different pay rate to go with it. And in my mind, the premise behind that would be we'd actually then also have an open secretary position that we wouldn't necessarily have to fill, but we could potentially, if there was some sort of need that arose, even in a part-time capacity, to have somebody come in and assist Sue, whether that's Dan. I know Dan, as the assistant treasurer, has essentially he's within the scope of his job duties to be able to assist Sue. But if there was any sort of shifting around or anything that we needed to do for that, we'd have essentially an open slot in which to do it.
I think we should make her head boss lady.
No. She already is head boss lady, okay?
I crack that whip.
You keep us honest, Sue, you do.
I try.
So that's at least my thought on that we talk very seriously about pay raise for that, and we continue to do the things that are the non-tangible benefits, like having the days off and things like that.
So I guess it would be a question tossing it back to Andy. So there's certain restrictions on pay raises, pay limits for certain job titles. In order to give Sue a substantial raise, do we need to change her job title, or is there any benefit to changing her job title along with responsibilities?
I mean, Sue is the township manager at this point, just not ordained that way, but she does all of those duties.
Yes.
So, yeah, I mean, you could give her a raise in her current position. I'm not aware of any restrictions related to that. Or you could, create the new position, township manager. Again, it has to be done by ordinance, but that's not complicated. And you could appoint her in that position.
Right. So then, and Sue, obviously we need you to think about that. And then, you know, considering do we need to bring in someone else? There's just so much work to do. I mean, every time I walk in the office, I say to myself, I could easily be here 8 hours a day, 5 days a week. And that's just doing my stuff. So.
Well, and I think, you know, honestly, this year was a little bit different all the way around. And, you know, I don't take it personally, but I felt like I was training 3 people, you know.
Yeah.
Plus trying to do my own work, you know,
Yes.
and it just is a little overwhelming at some points, but, you know, we got it done.
Yeah. But you know, that can still happen at any point in time too.
Right.
So, you know, again, so it just begs the question, do we need to move you up the ladder so that we could get someone in as a part-time position that can learn more of the ropes?
And also, you know, now that you are in the treasurer position and Dan is in the assistant treasurer position, you know, there are some of the reports that I did that now the treasurer should be doing.
Yes.
You know, some of the DCD things and, you know, so that takes a little bit of the workload off of me in the beginning of the year too. You know, it just is, you know, you just have to find the balance.
Yeah, so I have, yes, go ahead, Dan.
You know, I have the time available to dedicate to a part-time position. So if you wanted to move Sue up to one thing and allocate a budget for that position, I'm certainly willing to fill that spot.
Okay, so
Good.
quick
Thank
point
you,
here,
Dan.
whether we slide you into the secretary or keep you as the assistant treasurer, you actually are able and permitted to do essentially the secretary or assist the secretary in your current role, your current position, current pay rate.
Correct.
The big benefit, the 2 big benefits to doing something like ordaining Sue as the township manager would be to basically create an additional spot that if you were in, Sue was in, and we went, wow, we're really swamped. We need somebody here for the next 6 months to help you guys out because like we're doing a massive filing project. We're going to digitize everything. That we'd have essentially that open position that we could bring somebody in on. And Andy, keep me honest, correct me if I'm wrong. We don't have to fill the position. Like we can have open positions like that. It's not everything has to be filled 100% of the time.
Yeah, Sue could be the township manager and the secretary at the same time. Those are not incompatible.
Okay.
But right, you can have an open position of secretary.
Okay. So I guess the homework that I have, and one question I have for Sue is, would you be interested in formally being like the township manager if we actually go through the process of creating that position? Is that something that you would be interested in?
I don't know. I need to think about that.
Okay, because
At this point in my life, I don't really want to work a whole lot more hours either.
Oh, keep the hours the same.
Yeah. So basically, Sue, the intent here is you're already essentially doing it. That's the assessment and perception of everybody. So it would basically be continue doing what you're doing, just with a different title and different compensation.
I mean, personally, I'd like to think about it, but personally, I don't need to have a title. I'm not that kind of person.
Okay.
It's not important to me.
But
You know, I just do the job. I just do the job because it's my job and, you know, that's my commitment. So
I like the concept of being able to maybe get some more people in there to help, or maybe more space.
I know.
Yeah.
Well, and then, you know, keep in mind too that once the on-lot management letter goes out, you know, that's going to be more work to keep track of all those payments and billing if not paid, and you know, that kind of thing. But that's something that Dan could probably do.
Absolutely.
Exactly.
Absolutely.
Yep. And help me create a spreadsheet in the computer for that, so we can keep track of that.
Yep.
So the homework for the supervisors is how best we want to approach that, because from my approximation, we're able to either raise Sue's pay rate, or we could create an entirely new position that's a different title and has the pay rate that we want to give her on it. Either way is going to get us a similar result. The only benefit would be we'd have an additional position that we could hire for if we needed additional help.
Well, let's Sue think about it.
I don't think about it.
Okay. I think that really was the big component of stuff that that jumped out at me. A lot of the other stuff is pretty basic. Allocating money for repairing tools, equipment rental, highway, like the snow removal wages, street sweeping. I noticed that there wasn't a line item for that. I added that in, and it actually was on the 2020 budget. So I'm wondering if that was that.
I might have just overlooked it. It was getting late.
No, it's okay. So just like that was the one thing that jumped out as me, is I know we do that every year. So just little stuff like that. I want to go through and just hand reconcile all the, and honestly, with 3 or 4 sets of eyes on it, we're going to be in great shape when we go to review this in November. But I want us to really think long and hard on that, and honestly, come back next month with a wish list. If we had the budget to do whatever we wanted to do, or the key things that we wanted to do, these are the things that I think are the most critical. I think we should do this, 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 and this.
Yes.
So come back with the things that you'd love to see done, you think need to be done, or you know are absolutely critical that need to be addressed, and let's try and get them snapped into the budget so that we can address those items in 2021. Okay.
Peter,
Yes.
can you Google me this new updated budget?
Yep. Yes. So what I'm going to do is I'm actually going to put a folder out there with this one and the one that I'm currently working on, which is the one that Irene and you put together, and I'm mashing it up with the one from last year that we advertised. I'll put both of them out, and I'll make sure that the directory is shared to you.
Okay.
Yeah. Especially this is the one we worked on, Dan. Peter made it look.
I have.
Yeah.
This is a little different. I have the first.
Yeah.
This
Because
one's
it look a lot nicer.
Well, I also messed with a couple of the numbers too, but
Yeah.
I may give you a call, Dan, because I think I have your email written down somewhere, but I don't necessarily recall where I put it. It's on a Post-it note on my desk somewhere. So
I'll send it to you, Peter.
Okay, thank you. But the goal here is to make a little bit of an action center around the budget that I'll put up essentially the wish list that I had made for going into 2020 from 2019. That way you guys can see where my head was at with that, as well as the budget that you and Irene put together, the edited copy of that I have here, and then the one that would hopefully ultimately be the master that we use for advertising once we settle on it.
Excellent.
So I'll put that together, and I'll make sure that's out in the Google Drive. That way everybody can see it.
Yeah. Oh, communications.
Yes.
Line 39. That is the website. That's why that number jumped.
Yep. So that one's high because of the website, and on the other one, the final copy that I'm working on, I'm actually splitting that into communications to be telephone.
Yep.
And things like that, and then another one for multimedia, which would be like things like the website, the Zoom subscription, and if we wanted to do things like purchase a camera for actually in the township, so that we can, once we're back in the building, whenever COVID goes away, continue to stream these out onto the internet for anybody who can't actually get there in person.
That'd be great.
Yeah.
Yes.
It'd be great to even have a screen up so that the people in the audience can follow along with the information just as we are right now.
Yeah, either a screen or a projector or something. I think it would be really beneficial to be able, especially in the case of like the joint zoning stuff that we talked about tonight, to be able to put that map up large where people could see it.
Yep.
So there's a lot of things, but I'm messing around with some of the categories, and we will probably need to create a couple new codes of account to support it, but not hard.
At some point, if you could come into the office with me so that we can do just that, review some of the code of accounts, because Dan and I found some stuff that was miscategorized and we switched it around, but I just want to review that with you just to make sure that everything was put into the right boxes.
Yes, absolutely. And quick question for Andy. There's nothing that we have to do with the code of accounts as long as we conform to the guidelines that are in the the handbook that that Pennsylvania has for being or managing the funds, so that you're conforming to the same number scheme of like I don't remember any of them off the top of my head, but like 4, 11, 10 is always something with professional services.
Yeah, as long as you follow that guide, you're good.
Okay, that's I wanted to make sure we didn't have to like actually like motion on we're creating this. I didn't see anything in there about doing that, but it's better to be safe than sorry.
No.
Okay, good.
And when I
good,
was
good, good.
working with Rick, he felt like the code of accounts that we were using are just appropriate. We found something that was logged under one thing, but was then set up slightly differently with Rick. So we have to go back in and reassign that code because doesn't make sense in the budget. So I have to go back in and do that. And I left myself a large note for that. But he thought from an accounting perspective, we were doing everything just fine.
Okay, good.
As far as the advertising, when is our December meeting?
The
Are you
30th.
proposing-
It's the
No,
30th.
are you sure it is?
Yeah.
I looked.
Oh yeah,
yeah,
it is. Yeah,
I looked.
yeah.
I looked at the schedule because when I talked to Andy earlier, I was like, I thought it was like the 19th. I thought we moved it up a week, but
No, it
I
is on my schedule. Yeah. Okay.
yeah.
We'll have plenty of time.
And yeah, I went and I looked because I was just like, nah, I don't know, that doesn't seem right. And I think we moved it to the 30th. We moved it out rather than moving it forward because being so close to the November meeting, then that we'd have 2 weeks between meetings.
Yep.
So yeah, we have plenty of time that as long as we motion to advertise it at the November meeting, it'll be well within the legally required window for having the budget out there for people to see.
Yes. Which is 20 days.
Yes, thank you.
Mhm.
Okay, Sue, Jim, Irene, anything further on the budget for this point in time?
No, thank you. Thank you for taking a good look at it and reviewing it. I really appreciate it.
Aside
Irene,
from the fact that
I also volunteer my time, so if you need any help, please let me know. I'd be
Yeah,
happy to help.
sure.
good. Okay, I think the last thing we have is the comments. The only comment that I have is the police report. We actually had a quiet month last month. There were 36 total security checks, only 3 traffic accidents, no parking tickets, no traffic warnings, no non-traffic citations. There were 5 traffic citations issued, 4 traffic stops, 6 EMS fire advisories, but a lot of the categories that are on that sheet are all zeros. So it looks like maybe one of the unintended benefits of COVID-19 is there's been a little bit less police activity. So not on the police's part, they were out there the same amount of time that they normally are, but they've had less people to have to chase down. Irene, do you have any comments?
The garbage bag dumping issue, any feel for whether or not we're going to put up any no dumping signs, violators will be prosecuted type of a thing?
Yeah, I don't have any objection. I
Yeah.
thought that's where we left off was once we figure out the precise locations and the wording that we want to use.
Yeah.
We can,
Well, because there's different fees for different kinds of violations. I just would think that no dumping violators will be prosecuted, I think would be the simple enough language. But now I've noticed the garbage bags further down the road now.
okay.
I haven't noticed any garbage bags the past couple weeks, but then people aren't cutting grass that much now. Oh,
Yeah.
it's so frustrating.
So send me an email with the really what you're envisioning, what you're thinking.
Yeah.
I'll pounce it off of Andy one last time to make sure.
He had sent the link over the different violations. So because there's different fees, or I should say there's different fines for the different kinds of violations, you have to leave it as a broad category that violators will be prosecuted. So
Okay. So if you let me know specifically what we need, I'll put in the order with MSI.
sure.
Other than that, I think that's probably good. We do need to move the handicap sign.
Yep.
which is on my radar. I just didn't get a chance to do it because I want to move it and paint the curb at the same time when we do that. So I'll work on getting connected with the road crew on getting like Butch or Leon or somebody to go out and get that done. The one thing we may run into is, and it's the reason that we skipped putting one of the no parking signs up when we did it, is it's cement curb the whole way out, a grass patch that we can easily drive a signpost into. So we're gonna at some point gonna have to do some cutting to be able to put that sign in. So I know that we don't inherently have the tools at the township to do that, and the tools that I have all require being plugged in to do that sort of thing. So we got to figure out maybe a generator temporarily, or rent a piece of equipment for an afternoon or something. But one of the concerns that I had about that sign placement was we might not just be able to drive it into the ground. We might have to do some.
Be under equipment rental.
Yeah, specifically, yeah, that would be under equipment rental for the purposes of the budget. But when we go to do that, we want to make sure that we're prepared, because it might not be as simple as going out with a hammer like we did for the no parking signs outside of Stonecroft. Anything else, Irene?
No, thank you.
Okay, Jim, do you have anything?
As I mentioned to everybody today via text, as I was driving around today, I noticed one stop sign that is really, really faded badly. So I would ask that maybe you have the road crew as they're traveling around, and us as well. If you see a sign that is in bad shape that needs replaced, mark the location so that we can advise you to take a look at that, Peter.
Okay, and you said that was at Sheridan, I believe, in the text, correct?
Yeah, the end of Sheridan, it's faded very badly.
Sheridan is pretty long. Where do you mean the end? On William
It's-
Penn and Sheridan?
On
or
William,
Fort-
yeah, William Penn and
Okay.
Sheridan. Yeah.
Okay.
Yeah, I'll look at it. I think we actually may even have some stop signs sitting in the
I think
building.
there are some there too.
Yeah, and I believe, not to volunteer your husband, Sue, but I think he had actually offered to give us a crash course on refacing signs if we have some that are a little on the worn side.
We will do that.
So we'll see what we have first, and if we don't, we'll take it down, reface it, and put it back up. But absolutely, standing invitation to anybody and everybody. If you notice a sign that's worn or needs to be replaced or is missing, somebody has stolen it, please let us know. One of the things that's going to go live with the website is I actually have set up a text message forward to an email address where you can text the word road to this number, and whoever's the roadmaster, me presently, will get notice by text and by email that you've reported something. So in the very near future, you'll be able to not even have to call Sue or the township office to do it. You'll be able to just shoot a text off. You can even take a picture and put it in with the text, but you'd be able to reach out directly to report things for road issues or signs being vandalized or worn or missing.
Super.
Okay.
Speaking of stop signs, there was that stop sign that was involved in a motor vehicle accident. Chief Kirshner wanted us to send him a bill for. How do we create that?
I think we just need to get a quote from MSI is where we left off on that. And I think that might have been something waiting on me, if I can speak entirely honestly. Because I know I had gotten a quote for a stop sign and the bracket. I just don't think I ever turned it over to Chris.
Okay.
But I will make myself a note to do that. Okay. Andy, do you have any comments?
No, I don't have anything additional.
Okay, fantastic. Jim McCarthy or Craig?
Nope, nothing additional.
Okay.
Nothing to add either.
Okay, thank you, Craig. Sue, do you have any comments?
Just, did you get the email about the toters for Eagle? I don't know if you want to talk about that tonight or not.
I did. I didn't get a huge chance to look at it.
Okay.
The quick bit that I skimmed, they're potentially offering to give us these for the life of the contract.
They are. However, if we don't renew the contract, they go away.
Yeah. So quick overview as a recap. When we had originally put the trash service and recycling service out, one of the things that we had looked at as a potential option was getting bins for both trash and recycling, and it was prohibitively expensive. Evidently, Eagle is now offering to supply those bins at no charge to us. So we have to weigh in, do we want to do that? Is that going to be a tangible benefit for the township? I know it's going to be a benefit for Eagle because it makes their life easier for collecting it, because they can just use the truck to hoist it.
And that was the route supervisor was in and said, because they have a hard time keeping good help, they would have a truck that has some kind of,
yeah, it's got like a
arms
claw
on it that
on
just
it.
lifts it up and dumps it over. So one person has to drive the truck and do that, and it makes their job easier.
Yeah, if I can speak entirely honestly, my concern is that we'd get them for free now, but the cost of renewal would be astronomically high. And we'd have a situation where within the span of maybe about 1.5 to 2 years or so, because I think we have about 1.5 years or so on the contract still. I'd have to look at the actual dates. I want to say that was 2019 that we signed that.
We're about halfway through.
Yeah, I was gonna say, I want to say about halfway through out of that. That we'd essentially have about 1 year where we say everybody's got to use these bins. Everybody gets rid of their existing bins, and then we go back to everybody's got to get their own bins. I don't know necessarily that I want to do that, but I certainly see the value add for Eagle on that, because it does make the service a lot easier to deliver.
And
we
you
definitely
get 3-year contract with them?
Yeah, I believe there's a 3-year, and I think there's actually 2-year extension.
Yeah, there's 2 1-year renewal periods. So
Yeah.
it could be a 5-year.
Yeah, and say it could be a total of 5. And to speak entirely honestly, the rate at which we have Eagle, I'm fully in favor of extending that, because it was profoundly different between the other items that we had gotten when we did that request for proposal. So really long term, we would be potentially looking at 3-ish years of additional time with the bins. My concern is 3 years isn't a huge amount of time in the grand scheme of things. So if we tell everybody to get rid of their bins, put it out for request for proposal at the end of the 5-year term of that contract, and we find it's crazy expensive to have the bins provided as part of the service, I don't want to necessarily have to turn around and tell everybody, hey, you have to go out and get new trash cans again, when we just recently told you to get rid of them. So let's consider that, because I do see the benefit of it, but I also want to temper that against how much of a pain and hassle is it going to be for your average homeowner.
See if they'll put that in a letter form that they're not going to substantially raise the rate because of the use of those cans.
Oh, so for the remainder of the 5 years, they're not. They're offering to supply it to us.
I mean, even beyond that, if we renew the contract, that they're not going to slam us for using those bins.
Oh, so during the renewal, the contract is, and Andy, keep me entirely honest on this. The contract doesn't really give any wiggle room to do that. Like they're not going to be able to hike the rate on it.
No.
It's
no.
the concern.
What you're saying is he wants something acknowledging that if they bid on it again, then they wouldn't consider the fact that they've given us the carts. I don't know that they would do that. But.
Yeah, I don't think I think they'd be really apprehensive about putting something like that in writing. And my concern is when we put it out for a request for proposal, a lot of the prices are going to be higher anyway, just because of the general fact that things go up in cost every year, and there's a rapidly changing landscape on how we deal with trash and recycling in the United States. A lot of the recycling previously had been going overseas, and it isn't anymore. So the situation that we're going to be getting RFPs for at the end of that 5-year term may be substantially different. And I don't want to see us create a barrier for exit on something because we've locked in with bins, and they go, oh, well, you have all these bins, they're fantastic, aren't they? it's gonna be X number of dollars more per month because of that.
Well, they've
These are
already
big.
stated that they want to put in the bins to make their lives easier.
Yep.
So tell them we're apprehensive about what might happen in the future, as they might be apprehensive about what may happen in the future.
Yeah.
Yeah.
We're
These are-
essentially helping them.
Yeah.
These
yeah.
are
It's
very large carts. These are big trash cans. They're 96 gallons. I have one.
I do too.
Some people like them, some people don't. People that are elderly sometimes don't like them because they're relatively heavy, especially if you have garbage in them. There's a lot of garbage you can fit in there.
Yeah.
And it's tough to find a spot sometimes for a 96-gallon cart.
Yeah. Now, the one question I had, and I couldn't really tell from just a little bit that I quick skimmed it. Were they talking about giving us one, or giving us one for trash and one for recycling?
That I don't know.
Because that actually, that's a good point, Andy. They're
Well,
big.
and when he was in initially, he said one for trash and one for recycling.
Okay, because I would think they would almost have to do that, because I know they sometimes do collect both in the same truck and separate it later, but I would think they'd probably want to try to avoid that situation, because that's a lot of extra time and effort to do. And just to further that point, Andy, like you had said, they're big receptacles. I have one for garbage that's a 96-gallon, and having two of those, there's a lot of people in some of the, on Main Street, would have
no place to put them.
Yeah, I was gonna say they'd be great for getting the trash out, but you don't have anywhere to put them when they're not being collected, really. But
I think
So-
the recycling is just it's a much smaller can.
Yeah, but I put out way more recycling than I do trash.
Yeah, well,
Yeah, we
You're a
compost.
good citizen.
I was
Yeah,
gonna say I've got small children, and they generate an alarmingly large amount of trash. But I try to compost as much as I can. And to your point, Irene, there are weeks where I put out a metric ton of recycling, whether it's cans and oh, we used the last of the detergent, or oh, I got a bunch of stuff from Amazon. I've got cardboard boxes that I need to recycling. There's a lot of times that I do put out a fair amount of recycling, but I'd also recognize that your average person probably doesn't have that same usage habit, and probably would be okay with one or two smaller bins, like the ones that we used to have in the building there. So we don't have to do anything with it right this second, but likewise with the budget, give it some thought and really try to assess on what's the actual tangible benefit for us. I get that it's going to be useful for them, but at the end of the day, how does it impact the township? Is it a good, smart move for us to go to this? Or is it better to say, we appreciate the offer, but no thank you? Okay, anything else, Sue?
That's it.
Okay, fantastic. In that case, I will make a motion to adjourn the meeting. The time is now 9:09 p.m.
second.
Roll call. Peter.
Aye.
Irene.
Aye.
Jim.
Aye.
Okay,
All right.
thank you, everyone. It
Thank
was
you.
great seeing everybody's
Thank you.
smiling faces who were on camera, and stay safe, stay happy. Happy Halloween. And
Happy
we'll see
Halloween.
you at the
Thank
next
you.
Board
Thank
of
you.
Supervisors workshop meeting.
Good night, all. Thank you for
Bye.
letting me participate. I appreciate it. Good night.
Thank you for being here, Craig.
All right, Craig.